Hey, it's Carl with artistshred.com, and I am here with the LTD EC-10 in black. So this is a pretty nice guitar for $150, but a few things were wrong with it. So I bought it new on sale for $150. If you want to find out when I get those deals, subscribe to Riff City below and I'll let you know. Anyway, it's a $200 guitar, regular price, and I wanted to see if it's the type of guitar I could recommend to people in that price range. So LTDs in general, I like, but I've never played one of the cheap ones before. I always had or played the more, I guess, higher end ones, in the $400 to $500 range. Those have always been beautiful. So what was wrong with this one? The big thing was, I'm laughing a little bit here because my fingers are already getting scratched on some of these frets. I fixed the worst ones just so I could play the guitar because, as you might know, I like to play the guitars out of box for a little bit before I do a setup. But this one had so many sharp frets that it made it really difficult. Not a thing you want to have to fix, right? But easy enough. I have a Fret Guru fret end file. It's like $30, and it makes it really easy to not only fix those sharp frets, but make it look really nice, and you won't mess up your fretboard. That said, you don't really need something like this for a cheap guitar. You could get away with a flat file from the hardware store. You just got to be careful, tape off the fretboard and just be careful. Whereas something like this is made in a way where it's more difficult to mar the fretboard, which is really nice. Another thing wrong with this guitar was the tuner on the D string slips. So it's a little bit difficult to get it in tune. Once you get it in tune, the guitar stays in tune, but that tuner is a little messed up. Now, if you know me, tuners for cheap guitars are the type of thing that if I was to keep the guitar, I'd get new tuners, generally some kind of locking tuners, even if they're cheap locking tuners. Locking tuners just make changing strings so much easier. It's like 80 to 90% of the reason to have locking tuners is it makes changing strings easier, but it's also a huge upgrade from these cheap kind of tuners. Let's get into some specs. 24 frets, 2 humbuckers, 3-way switch, volume and tone control. It's got a plastic nut. Again, cheap guitar. That's generally what you have to expect. Made in China. And I'll be honest, it feels great and it sounds good. Beyond the tuner problem and the sharp fret problem, it's a really sweet guitar. So what else? Oh, a few things. It's got a belly carve, really nice for comfort. It's got an angled carve right here to reach the high frets. Makes it a little easier to reach the high frets. The frets are clean beyond those burrs. The fretboard's clean. More than I can say for a lot of cheap guitars I've reviewed. Oh, and it also comes with a case, a cheap case. And it's the type of thing where I much prefer no case and spend a little time making the guitar better. But what can you do, This guitar out of box came set up pretty well. The string height at the 12th was just above 2 millimeters. And once I lowered it just below 2 millimeters, I started getting some string buzz on the D string at the 2nd fret because the 5th fret is high. So when it vibrates, you can't hear that. I don't have it plugged in. You probably can't hear that, but it buzzes a little bit right there. Not a huge problem, but it is annoying to work on just one fret. So it's not worth doing a whole fret level for one fret because then you got to crown and polish every fret that you mess with or that the sanding beam touches, basically. So what I'm going to do, and this should work and you'll find out if it does. I'm gonna take my Fret Guru crowning file and recrown that fret, and it should take just enough of metal off of the fret to bring it level with the other frets. Let's get to the setup, then we'll get into a sound demo where I'll demo it obviously in clean and dirty in the various pickup switch positions. So let's do it. A little more than I bargained for. Just using the crowning tool on the 5th fret didn't work to lower the fret enough, which it's not really what the tool's for, so it was an experiment for me to see if I could get away with that for 1 fret. But as you saw, I had to tape up the fretboard and basically run the level over all the frets and then polish all the frets. That's life. I will say, nice and smooth, no burrs up and down. The frets are mirror shined, so the person who's gonna get this guitar after me is gonna have a really nice EC-10 beginner's guitar. Now time to string it up and do that sound demo. So there we have it, the LTD EC-10. As you heard when I turned up the fuzz, not much clarity in the pickups. I tried all three positions. Any of the the ringing notes, they don't really come out. The low end overpowers them. And you know what? That's fine. In general, as I hope you'll agree, the sound demo, it sounded decent, clean, thrashy kind of distortion, and the fuzz distortion, a little bit of flanger with delay sounded good. So really, I think this is a totally respectable metal guitar for sure. Like if that's your jam, playing metal, it's a sweet guitar. But can I recommend it? That's a little bit more difficult because it had so many sharp fret ends that unless you feel comfortable fixing that, it's it's really not worth it because you can find a guitar that doesn't have that. Now, that doesn't mean if you order it, you're gonna get that. Who knows? It's a crapshoot sometimes with cheap guitars of what you're gonna get when you order them online. But if you see one locally, or if you have a store near you that sells them new, you can go check them out and pick one that doesn't have sharp fret ends. This thing, because I set it up, actions below, a little bit below 2 millimeters, the frets are smooth as butter now because I had to polish them. Beautiful, it plays really, really well. One thing I do want to mention, talking about those frets, I was experimenting a little today with seeing if a crowning file could lower one fret so I don't have to do a fret level, or don't have to get the fret leveling beam out just for one fret. There are other ways to fix just one high fret, but the beauty of a cheap guitar like this for me is I can experiment without worry, and even a failure is a learning experience. So for me, that's really fun, right? I would never experiment on any guitar that costs any considerable amount of money. But for $150, one of the best reasons to buy a cheap guitar if you've been playing for a while, you can experiment with swapping pickups, soldering, all of that type of stuff. You can experiment with setting the guitar up, messing with the truss rod. Say you want to have a low tuning guitar, you're gonna have to do a setup. You can mess with all of that stuff, and first off, you're not gonna break anything. It's very unlikely you're gonna break anything. And if you do a bad job with the setup or with whatever upgrades you try to do, you can take them to a professional and get them done. That is what you were gonna do anyway if you were gonna do those upgrades, right? Before you tried to do it yourself. So you come out on top by learning a few things. I highly encourage you, if you've never done any kind of setup or any kind of mods to a guitar, to play around when you have one that is cheaper. And honestly, even if you have a decent guitar and it's your only guitar and you're afraid to do some mods to it, I would say don't be afraid. Do what you want to it within reason. And if you mess up, it's always possible. Nearly always possible to get it fixed by a professional if it comes to that. And honestly, it might not come to that. So anyway, a lot of philosophizing. So let's get to just my final thoughts. I've already kind of mentioned it. I like this guitar. For the price, I think it's nice for someone like me who can fix the things wrong with it. The person who gets it after me is gonna have a really nice guitar. But I don't really recommend it based on the fact that I don't know if you're gonna get one with messed up frets or not. And that's just the name of the game. If you're gonna check it out in person and you're thinking about a cheap guitar and you like metal specifically, yeah, this is a good option. Not my favorite, but it's a good option. So we're gonna leave it at that, aren't we? If you have any comments, please leave them below. Have any questions, leave them below. I respond and read to I respond to and read every comment, of course. And if you want, you can email me as well. Until next time.